this episode of The Dog Show, I welcome back Marc Goldberg. Marc is the co-author of the book, The Art of Training Your Dog, a unique guide for gently teaching good behavior using an e-collar. Marc has been training dogs for over 50 years and is a nationally renowned dog trainer. He is also the former president of the International Association of Canine Professionals. In the interview, we discuss what causes food aggression in dogs and how you can overcome it. Marc, welcome back to The Dog Show once again.
Thank you for having me, Will. I'm glad to be here with you again.
Yeah, it's a pleasure having a chat with you. I had so much fun the last time we had a chat. I've asked you to come back on the show. For anyone that's looking for some great content about e-collars, they should have a look back at episode 27, where we talk in depth about everything to do with training dogs with e-collars. But today, I want to talk to you about food aggression with dogs. It's something that you've got a fair bit of experience with, given you've been in the dog training industry for half a century. But do you want to just start by giving me a background on what causes food aggression for dogs?
Well, it's true. I have been in dog training for about 50 years, but I was a child bride, I assure you. I started very young.
You still look. I mean, I can't imagine it because you still look very young. So
yeah, that's getting more expensive and taking more effort. But I change the oil often. So listen, here's the thing. We can and should spend a moment maybe discussing somewhat the origins of food aggression. We should, but at the same time, I think it's a little bit of a mistake especially with this particular dog behavior problem, to get overly lost in the why, which is something that people tend to do. So, and I'll tell you why I start there. Because there's so much junk on the internet, so much conflicting information about food aggression with the internet, that accidentally a lot of good-meaning dog rescuers and puppy buyers might accidentally create food aggression by trying to follow all these instructions that they may find on the internet. Now, there are some dogs which are very tolerant of people constantly interrupting their food, sticking their hands in the bowl, putting the bowl down, picking the bowl up, petting the dog, touching the dog's mouth while it's eating. And quite frankly, I don't recommend that you do any of those things, but holy cow, that is all over the internet. Well, here's the problem with it. Dogs, like people, come in all sorts of varieties and attitudes towards food. Now, I don't know about you, Will, but I'm a sharer, okay? Like if you want one of my French fries, that's not going to be a problem. If you've got a prawn, you got too many prawns on the plate, I'm your guy and I'm going to help you. But we all know the people where they'll slap your hand as you're on the way in to try a thing. Or even reasonable people who are there sharing dim sum may at a certain point go, okay, you know what? That's enough.
Yeah.
Like you have food in front of you, focus on that. And so you can create food aggression even in people. We all know, who's going to give you a fork right through the back of your hand if you eat too many of those prawns. So, and dogs they come in those sorts of, they're all over the spectrum a little bit like that. So first, I recommend that people take a healthy attitude towards dogs. There are a lot of old sayings that make sense, and one of them is like, let sleeping dogs lie. Okay, don't mess with the dog because he won't bite the hand that feeds him. But of course, this presumes that you're not overly messing with the dog, or worse yet, rather than creating the issue, perhaps you have acquired a dog who is just for whatever reason showing that problem. I got a call today from a potential client who, if they so much as look at this dog with an extended glance while the dog is eating, he will hover over his dog bowl and growl. So, look, first, let me put this out there. If you have a serious situation, meaning your dog has bitten or you are beginning to become afraid that your dog is going to bite over a food-related issue, then you want to call for professional assistance. But we can discuss it pretty thoroughly here. So first, we have to define food. And you wouldn't think we'd have to, but we do, because a lot of people will give a dog things like a bone or a big jerky strip or a bully stick or rawhide or a chew hoof or a pig's ear. There's just innumerable things that we humans tend to think of as a treat or a toy. But if it is to be ingested from the perspective of the dog, it's food. And the higher value it is, the more worthwhile defending it eventually becomes. So when we have a dog who's touchy about such things, I like to start by removing temptation. And it's not that I don't want to give my dog a treat in that scenario. What I want my clients to do at that point is to just carry a pocket full of treats that are no bigger than a Tic Tac, gulped and gone. That's a treat. And those are given to the dog not because he's cute, not because he has a pulse, not because he barked in your face, not because he peed, but because he did something you asked. Okay, such as come or sit. If your dog wants a treat, and they do that barking, give me a treat thing, well, that's gimme. And I like to teach dogs, say please. And in order to help elicit that behavior, I view that bark to be a volunteer for extra credit. So if I got a dog volunteering for extra credit, I just give them a real simple command, come sit down, and then I give the treat. I just want the dog to understand food comes. I am your leader. I love you. I am benign, but food comes in return for good things. So if you have just a light case of food aggression where the dog may occasionally, just hover over the food and get a little bit stiff, what I think that you might try doing at that point would be, first, let the dog start to learn you don't mess with him while he's eating. Don't be the guy trying to take too many of your dog's French fries. Put the food down. You might want to stay close in the area. You shouldn't run away, and flee, but you don't want to stand there staring at the dog, And it's funny, Will, because when people get nervous about this thing, it's in the back of their head. And it's like if you have a sore spot on your shoulder, you can't stop poking it and picking it to make sure that it still hurts. Does it hurt? Does it hurt? Does it hurt? And we will subconsciously do that with the dog, which means we begin to up the intensity with which we treat the entire problem. And now the dog's just going to become paranoid and create the problem worse. So I like to just show the dog, hey man, I'm going to be in the area. But I really don't care what you're doing there. So I would start there. If you have a more severe problem, then one of the things that I like to do is to teach the dog, hey man, I am not the stealer of your food. I am not the interrupter of your meal. I'm the waiter that you want back at the table, right? We've all had the experience. Well, I actually, this may be a uniquely American thing, because I've been to Australia, and sometimes you got to beg for service there. At least that was my experience. But here you may have a server who's too solicitous, who's too on top of you, and you just want them to go and let me eat. Well, you don't want to be that. You don't want to be that waiter. You want to be the other waiter to a dog that may have food aggression on some level. Sir, ma'am, excuse me. The one you want them back there. And how can you achieve that status? Well, it's actually pretty easy. Put the bowl down for your dog empty. And then don't even approach it. Just call your dog to you and give your dog a handful of food from hand. Okay. And then go over there and take another handful of food and put it in the dog's bowl and let him eat it. Be 10 feet away. And then it's only a little bit. And then call him to you and give him another handful. And then just tell him to sit and go over to the bowl and drop some food in there. And just if he breaks the sit, don't drop it. Just fix the sit. And then drop the food in the bowl and then just let him eat it. So that the dog begins to understand you don't take away, you give, you add. So that's a critical thing, because now your dog wants you, back to you. I mean, that's just a start, but this is some of what I might recommend. We do talk about it thoroughly, my co-author and I, in our book called Let Dogs Be Dogs. And I just happen to have a copy of it here.
Perfect.
So, the virtual background's goofing me up a little bit. With Let Dogs Be Dogs, we talk about providing resources because we want the dog to understand you give, occasionally you take away, such as something that I shouldn't have, but you always replace it with something better, right? So on those instances where your dog has something and you don't want him to have it, rather than yelling at him and snatching it away, especially if you're trying to avoid increasing aggression over resource guarding like this, just take one of those high value treats out of your pocket, stick it in your dog's nose, and he's going to drop whatever he's got to get that thing. And you're just trading him so that eventually he learns you give, you take, but you share in abundance. And this is what we need.
It sounds like, as with everything with training a dog to stop a behavior or learn a new behavior, it takes a lot of discipline and slowly tactics to get to a place where you need to be. So it comes back to the owner being very patient.
You have to be strategic, and that's such a good point. You do have to be patient. So it's very typical that we'll get emotional and upset over such things, and then we might accidentally intensify the problem by engaging the emergency. Are you still aggressive? Does it still hurt? Does it still hurt? And then, like, I train an Akita. That's a breed that can tend towards being possessive. It's not a bad breed of dog, but Akitas, Rottweilers, there's just certain kind of breeds that are just a little more possessive than others. And it's very important that early on in your relationship with these dogs, you teach them, I'm never going to deprive you. I'm always going to give to you. But we sometimes, in our family, we sometimes trade. But I sent home a Akita who had pretty serious dog aggression. And I had minimal problems with her once she came to understand I might get near her bowl, but it was going to be to add something rather than to subtract something. So she began to welcome my presence near her. But what I didn't do was constantly poke her, pet her, steal her French fries. But her owner couldn't stand to not do it. And so she regressed at home. Also, that's impatience. And I'll wrap up by saying I'm not going to mention the name, but I know a dog trainer who made a house call for a food aggressive husky. And what they did was they put this husky on a pinch collar, which it had never worn before. Okay. And I'm an advocate of using a prong collar gently and artistically, strategically. And in my book with the monks, The Art of Training Your Dog, we talk all about how to introduce it and use it very gently. But this trainer just slapped one on, literally threw a handful of pizza on the floor, and then started just like yanking and hanging this dog to get the dog away from the pizza as a leave it, to teach it. If you don't leave it, when I say leave it, I'm going to hurt you. And well, she got stitches, the trainer did. The dog got the pizza and the trainer got the stitches.
I'm not laughing.
This is not a good way.
I'm not laughing in a good way there. I'm laughing because it sounds like a bad situation.
Well, because people get emotional and impatient about such things, whereas a well-considered strategic plan is always going to do better. I have a German Shepherd of my own who loves her food. So when she's eating, you got to kind of keep your arms and legs. She's not going to bite anybody. But she's just eating with such incredible gusto that's what she's focused on. But I give her fish oil pills and a few little things. And once in a while I'll realize, oh gosh, she's halfway done her dinner and I forgot, the fish oil pill. So she knows, if I'm coming at her while she's eating, I'm going to add something to the food. Or accidentally, once or twice I've given her like the wrong meal because I have 3 dogs. And I need to be able to get in there and remove the bowl. I need to be able to stop the dog, remove the bowl. I think if I was doing that 4 or 5 times every meal, it would just be unfair and too much. But I do interact with my dogs and their food often enough for her to say, well, just this once, if you need to take my plate. Okay. And this is how I think people should view it. You want to be the provider of food. You want to be the trader for resources. You want to be a fair and benign leader, and the fair and benign leader doesn't pull the false alarm constantly, doesn't eat too many French fries, and is thoughtful in the way we approach food. So again, if you have a real problem, you might stop feeding out of a bowl. Like the last really scary dog I trained, food aggression, it was a Rottweiler, and it was a female, and she didn't like me at all. She didn't want me near her kennel. She didn't want me near her bowl. She didn't want me near her. And the problem was I had like 3 weeks to train her, to do things like heel and come and sit and down. So I needed her to like me, and I needed her to let me train her and feed her. So That dog didn't eat a meal out of a bowl for probably 10 days. She ate all her food from my hand. I don't want to ever deprive a dog of her calories, guys. So what I'm not suggesting here is that you be the provider, but provide the meal. Don't deprive the dog to make them hungry in order to manipulate them emotionally or physically. That's immoral, I think. And some trainers might do that. But this dog got every crumb she was supposed to get, but she got it throughout the day in return for come and sit and not growling. And, a week later, she was in my lap. She loved me because I was he who provided.
You brought the food, so. Is the introduction of other dogs into a household, can that often cause aggression with food, which may not have been there previously?
That's a really good point. And we talk a whole lot about this in Let Dogs Be Dogs. We have a whole chapter on how to deal with multiple dogs in the household. Because when you add even a second dog to a one-dog household, the dynamic can change radically. So look, as I said, I have 3 dogs of my own. I have a very fast eater, I have a medium fast eater, and then I have a slow eater. My fast eater will finish her meal in 2 minutes. And my slow eater, it's going to be about 15 minutes. And, my middle guy right in the middle. So because I have 3 dogs and I'm a dog trainer, if I wanted to, I could put down each bowl, nobody move, okay, eat. And then I could stand there, don't move, she's not done yet. And I could maintain order and separation for that whole 15 minutes while my little one is eating. But I got better things to do. Okay?
Of course.
I want to be able to, take a shower or get on the phone or Facebook or, anything. And so in my case, and I think what is healthiest for a lot of people with multiple dogs is I feed my guys in crates, because that just takes competition out. You do not want competition between your dogs. If they're each of them eyeballing the other's food. Eventually that can lead to tensions. So you've either got to maintain a command presence where you can just put a dog in a down after it's eaten and wait until everybody's finished. And then, by the way, remove the bowls because everyone's going to want to check out the other guy's bowl. And I don't think that that's healthy. Somebody might start to want to defend their bowl. We want no competition. We want the dogs to look at you as she or he who provides everything for everybody, and we don't have to fight over any of it. So, and the funny thing is, when it's dinner time at my house, my dogs run to their crate and claw to try and get into them as though their favorite restaurant were closed and they're upset about that.
Yeah.
They don't come to me, they go to their crate. And that's a final point I would make in a multi-dog household with feeding dogs. My crates are closed and locked, whether the dog is in them or out of them. Because among the things that you don't want are dogs climbing into crates together, competing for space, or in an excited, agitated state of mind, trying to defend what they think is their crate. It's your crate. So you let them in there when it's an appropriate time. And that keeps everything, I think, clearer and safer for the dogs. But you've either got to maintain order and play traffic cop. If you don't have that level of control, then you need crates. But I have that control, but I still prefer a crate for feeding.
So it sounds like in a multi-dog situation, you're best to have some separation and just the habit of eating and not having that exposure to the other dog's bowls or their space afterwards.
So yes, and that can be done either with physical separation of crates, or it can be done by just controlling each dog on a sit or a down, and you just teach them you don't move from your bowl. It can easily be done that way. Another important thing is it's important for people to feed the calm in the dog rather than the excited or agitated. It's very common that dogs get extremely excited around dinner time. And if they're all jumping in the air and you're fighting to get them out of the way to put the bowl down, then you have dogs in an escalated frame of mind, which is a little unpleasant when you're feeding one big dog who might be, jumping up and down and, you could get knocked over. But if you're feeding 3 or 4 dogs, or even 2, if they get overly excited, they might begin to redirect onto one another with frustration. And so it's that level of excitement that you want to stop. So basically, when I have dogs jumping to get fed, I just pause and I wait. They just sit. Eventually, they'll just go, what? They become confused even. And in that moment of confusion, they become rational because they start to think, what do I got to do to eat? And that's when I put the food down. So guys, if you have a dog who gets jumpy, spinny, barky, wild, crazy while you're preparing food, just spend the next few days testing me on this, but literally just stop and freeze for 10 seconds anytime they do something crazy like that. And then when they quiet, even for a moment, even if it's confusion, resume and don't say a word. It's got nothing to do with words. It's just you show them with actions. I feed calm dogs. I don't feed crazy kids. And then they work a lot more towards meeting your goal of, freeing up the food. And calm dogs are far less likely to aggress.
Okay. Well, thanks, Mark, for sharing all those great tips on food aggression for dogs. If I was to summarize it all, I'd say if you have some minor aggression issues with your dog, try a few of the tips that you've given on this podcast, such as becoming the provider of the food and slowly moving them up the chain of where you can have control of the situation. If that's not working, check out your book, Let Dogs Be Dogs, where there's some further tips on how to deal with it. If the issues are a little bit more extreme than what we're discussing, then obviously see an expert and try and get some help.
Absolutely.
Great. Well, thanks for that today, Mark.
Thank you, Will. Appreciate you being here. Feed your dogs. Don't tease your dogs, guys.
Feed your dogs, don't tease your dogs. We'll leave with that.
Yeah.